Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Ansar Academy. Today we will be studying on physical properties that do depends on attraction of forces between particles. Okay, so our first physical property is melting point and boiling point. For instance, if we take a solid mass and if we try to melt or boil it, we have to melt it for a longer time. Relatively, if we take a liquid volume and try to melt and boil it, so it will take a lesser time against the solid one. So it tells us that the liquid molecule or liquid volume has contain that like they contain it contains a particles that has weak or that has weak attractive forces between them, and moreover it also tells us that the solid particles are strongly held together, so they have a strong attractive forces. So like this, melting boiling and by melting and boiling point depends on attraction of forces between particles. And our second most physical property, is the solubility in water. And I'm talking about solubility, it's in water. And for instance, if we can explain through the experiment, like if you take a can or a jar filled with water, and try to dissolve the solid crystals inside it. So the one having the large or more or strong attractive force between its particles will dissolve, and it will take more time. Relatively, the one which has weak attractive force will take less time, and it will dissolve more quickly. For instance, if we take a marble solid and try to dissolve in the water, I think it won't dissolve at any time. So it tells us that the marble solid contains the particles which are many times stronger than the other ones. So it also depends on attraction of forces. Our third physical property is the viscosity. The definition of viscosity is simply to ability to flow, like how thick or how thick the liquid is. So we can define this that the ability to flow is the definition of the viscosity. Like the honey, if you take for example, honey is more viscous than the water, and petrol is more viscous than the water. So it tells us that it also depends on the attraction of forces between particles. For instance, honey has the stronger force of attraction, so it is more viscous, while the water has less viscosity due to its weaker bonds or weaker attractive forces among its particles. So the less viscous materials will flow easily, and its opposite, if it is more viscous, then it will flow. It won't flow, or it will flow very slowly. Our foremost physical property is the vapor pressure. Actually, the pressure caused by the vapors simply means that, we can also explain, it means that pressure exerted by the vapor when it's in equilibrium. Remember, we will be looking on the equilibrium and on those topics in our further classes. So here it means that when the forward and the backward reactions are happening at the same rate, and the concentration of both the concentration of the reactants and the products are same. So just remember this for now. So the vapor pressure means pressure exerted by the vapor when it's in equilibrium with its liquid state. So if in a liquid state, for instance, liquid A has stronger attractive forces between its particles, so it will have a great pressure, and it will create more pressure. And on the other hand, if we have a liquid B which has the weaker bonds or weaker attractive forces between its particles, will create a lesser pressure than the liquid A. So it just means that, so to demonstrate that, so if we take a container and put water in it, after a certain period of time, it will have a certain pressure in the container. Why? Because as we know that the evaporation happens at any temperature, so same happens in this container too. So the more energetic particles here, water particles, evaporate and turns into vapor or a gas, while the particles which are already evaporated turns back into liquid state. So here what? Evaporation is taking place, and here a condensation is taking place. So here we can write it's in the state of gas, and here it's in the state of liquid. So the particles that are evaporated creates a kind of pressure, because they bump into each other and they collide with each other, creating a force, creating a pressure. So certainly the time will come when the we will call the equilibrium, when the forward reaction, like for example forward reaction is evaporation, forward reaction will be happening at equal rate against the condensation reaction. So it will create a certain kind of pressure. So here is a demonstration of how a pressure is created and in the equilibrium. Let me remind you that when the equilibrium reaches, there will be no net movement of the particles. Okay, so it's just a point. So here we learn about the pressure, that the particle, when they are evaporated, they cannot go outside, and certainly they lose energy and constantly condensed. And after all, the time comes and the equilibrium reaches, where the net movement becomes zero and the pressure is constantly changing. Pressure is constantly made constantly. So moving on, the last point, or the last physical property that depends on the attraction of force between particles, is the states of matter, like for example solid, liquid, and gas. So it's just a general point that the states of matter also depend on the attraction of forces. For example, solid has the strong attractive forces between its particles, while liquid has less, and the gas has the least attractive force. So the gas creates a pressure more, and liquid creates a lesser pressure, and solid does not, or solid creates a least pressure. So these were the 5 points or 5 physical properties that depends on attractive forces between particles. I hope you like it. Subscribe, share, and comment down below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And bye.